Welcome to Simply Robotics, the podcast, a podcast exploring the animation industry one episode at a time. I'm your host, Monique. You can find me on all social media platforms at Simply Robotics. That's SimplyRobotix. When listening to the show, use the hashtag SimplyRoboticsPod to join in on the conversation. So let's just get into it. This episode took me a while to record because it was just better in theory for the most part. I thought I was going to watch just a bunch of the Disney live action remakes, and I was going to be able to get this out sooner than I was able to, right? I didn't watch as many as I originally intended because after a couple, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It's more important to get the episode out with what I have than to try and hit all these different movies. So let's get started. As I said, this episode is about the live action Disney remakes versus their animated or 2D animated original inspirations or foundations or what have you. The first movie that we're going to start off with is The Jungle Book. The Jungle Book, the animated version came out in 1967. The live action came out in 2016. According to Wikipedia, the synopsis is raised by a family of wolves since birth, Mowgli must leave the only home he's ever known when the fearsome tiger Shere Khan unleashes his mighty roar. Guided by a no-nonsense panther and a free-spirited bear, the young boy meets an array of jungle animals, including a slithery python and a smooth-talking ape. Along the way, Mowgli learns valuable lessons as his epic journey of self-discovery leads to fun and adventure. This sounds way better than the actual live action. However, the live action wasn't that bad. A couple pros that I had was that I was not thrown off by the animal speaking. This was actually also my first time watching the live action one. I never was really interested because there's been, live action iterations of the Jungle Book for years now, basically, and I've never been interested in any of them. Shere Khan versus the animals, they have this big epic fight or whatever towards the end, and that was actually pretty good. I was very, very engaged. I was borderline on the end of my seat because I was like, yo, these animals are getting to it, and I thought it was pretty entertaining, that fight scene. And lastly, Shere Khan was probably the best looking CG character in the entire film. What's his name? Baloo. Baloo was just a regular bear. Yeah, Shere Khan was just the best one. I'm blanking on everybody's names. The con I had was Bare Necessities. I have just a little bit. Bare Necessities was not as charming as in the animated version. The song was still good, but the song itself was still missing a lot of personality to it. And just visually, it's this is supposed to be this real live looking bear. He's not about to start shucking and jiving in the cartoon, so it was a little bit of disconnect there. And also King Louie, who is the orangutan, was actually kind of scary. He was super huge in the live action. In the cartoon movie, he's not that big, but in this live action, he's ginormous. He's just a giant. He's a giant orangutan. I thought that was pretty scary. Not scary, but just regular scary. Final thoughts. After watching this movie, I understand how we arrived at the live action Lion King of 2019. Everything that took place since the Jungle Book and that is still in the works to happen after the Lion King all makes sense. I can imagine, because I didn't pay attention to it at the time. The live action Jungle Book came out in 2016. I wasn't paying it no mind back in 2016. But watching it now, I understand why we have a live action Lion King, why we had a Dumbo, why we've had Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella, we're getting Little Mermaid, we're getting Mulan, we're getting Lady and The Tramp. We're getting so much live action, and I get it now. Moving forward, Dumbo live action versus the animated version. Overall synopsis, it's a little different, which is worth noting. The cartoon and the live action version have a little bit different plots going on. Dumbo came out in 1941, and the synopsis is as follows a young circus elephant is born with comically large ears and given a cruel nickname Dumbo. One day at a show, he is taunted by a group of kids, inciting his mother into a rage that gets her locked up. After Dumbo's ears cause an accident that injures many of the other elephants, he is made to dress like a clown and perform dangerous stunts. Everything changes when Dumbo discovers that his enormous ears actually allow him to fly, and he astounds everyone at the circus with his new talent. The live action synopsis, again, this is all from Wikipedia. The struggling circus owner Max Medici enlists a former star and his 2 children to care for Dumbo, a baby elephant born with oversized ears. When the family discovers that the animal can fly, it soon becomes the main attraction, bringing in huge audiences and revitalizing the rundown circus. The elephant's magical ability also draws the attention of V.A. Vanderveer, an entrepreneur who wants to showcase Dumbo in his latest larger-than-life entertainment venture. So this V.A. Vanderveer guy, he's the bad guy of things. He's the antagonist, and he basically has like a dark and twisted Disneyland, Disney World type of scenario. So just comparing the 2 scenarios or synopsises off the bat, one has way more people present and at the forefront of the story than the other. The pros that I have for this Dumbo live action is that Dumbo himself is actually really cute, or cuter than I anticipated. He had a little bit of stylization that allowed him to be more visually appealing, like he had the little blue eyes, and at some moments I was like, oh, Dumbo's actually kind of cute. Like, not as appealing, obviously, as a cartoon, but for a CG character, I was like, okay, like, I can totally tolerate this. I did like how they handled the March of the Elephants, or Pink Elephants number. I kind of always get this confused with Winnie the Pooh. They also had like an elephant number when they're like tripping out. Well, Winnie the Pooh is kind of like tripping out because there's like this massive storm happening, and he goes into like this haze. And it's the same thing with like music and the elephants are kind of shape-shifting, and there's bubbles and colors and stuff like that, but that's going off on a tangent. Dumbo live action, that March of the Elephant scene, it was pretty cool. I actually really liked it, and it was very similar to the original animated version, and quite possibly like my favorite part of the live action movie. Also, the 3rd act of the live action Dumbo picks up a lot. I was super invested, and it only took about like 70 to like 75, 80 minutes for me to be like, I'm watching, I just want to know how they're going to pull everything together. The first 2 acts of the movie really drags. I'm not even going to front. It drags. I was like, I really have to keep watching this because I need to talk about it on the podcast. But if it wasn't for the podcast, I definitely would have turned it off way sooner, because from the beginning, I was like, oh, like this movie's more so like about people featuring Dumbo than like Dumbo and his story. There is a trapeze artist in this because it's a circus, and there's a point where like this V.A. Vanderveer guy makes her ride Dumbo, and that made me so uncomfortable. Like, I grew up going to circuses very often here in New York. It was like a family thing. My dad took my brother and I every year or twice a year whenever they came to town, and then just learning about the treatment of animals in circuses definitely made me feel like I don't feel comfortable going and enjoying the circus as I used to, right? Because now I know things. And so Dumbo wasn't being abused himself. They were showing a bit of like, not anything drastic, but there was a bit of animal abuse. And I guess, I don't know, are y'all gonna watch the live action? Should I spoil it? Do I not spoil it? I'm not gonna spoil it, but there was a little bit of animal abuse happening in the movie, and it got handled. Going back to what I was saying, this trapeze artist getting on Dumbo to ride him as he's like flying around the circus tent. This made me feel very weird. Like, why did we have to introduce that into this story? I don't know. There's also towards the end where like Dumbo's reunited with his mom. They get on this ferry, and it took a bit, not that long, but it just wasn't really clear where they were going. And I wasn't sure if maybe because I was checking out mentally, losing my interest in the movie, that I wasn't keeping tabs really on where they were supposed to be going. Maybe one of the characters or the humans, they said so. Also, none of the animals talk in live action, whereas they definitely talk in the cartoon version. I don't know. I'm not going to comment on it because it's supposed to be real, right? I could comment. This is what the point of the podcast is, to comment on it. But anywho, so they were getting on this boat, and then some scenes happened, and they actually go back to check in on Dumbo and his mom, and it turns out that they were in this jungle with a whole bunch of other elephants. And all honesty, I was like, is this the same jungle as Jungle Book? Because I wouldn't be surprised though if Disney did like go back and repurpose some 2016 scenes of the jungle in the Jungle Book and put like Dumbo and his mom in them and just like brought them to 2019, because that's what it looked like. I also completely forgot that this was directed by Tim Burton, and now that I think about it, I don't think it was edgy enough. Like, Tim Burton gave us Beetlejuice, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and he did the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and all those things had like a lot of like a creepiness and weird and a little scary type of things going on with it. And I felt like when this was announced, I was very intrigued to see Dumbo, because I felt like Tim Burton would put a really, really dark spin on it. And the darkest parts of this movie were really in the beginning-ish with the animal abuse, and it wasn't really maintained throughout the whole film. So I wonder what was going on with some of the production, and maybe if he was dealing with execs or what have you that told him he had to either like dial it back or like, I don't know. I felt like it should have been a bit more trippy, and especially with it being in like a circus, and circus has clouds and like a freak show, and there was like all this sort of stuff. Another thing worth mentioning is that when Dumbo, right, it came out in 1940, so there was I was gonna say a bit, but there definitely were alluding to racial stereotypes of the three black crows in the animated version. With the 2019 version, there is a black character, and he's, I guess, supposed to have like super strength, and he gave me like Bubba vibes from Forrest Gump. He reminded me enough of that actor. I forget what his name was in The Green Mile, but it definitely was like that. And I was like, oh, so you guys are still kind of holding on to some of the racial remnants of the 1940s version here in this one. Y'all could let me know if y'all have seen the live action Dumbo. I actually really want to know what you think, because I guess I don't know too many people who have, and I would appreciate continuing the dialogue with a person and hearing what they think. And also, I guess if you're interested based off of what I've said so far and you want to check it out, and then we can talk about it. Moving forward, I have Aladdin. The animated version came out in 1992, and the remake came out in 2019. Which is like, Disney really is pushing out the live action stuff for 2019. Like, for real, we got Dumbo, we got Aladdin, we got The Lion King, and that's just to theaters. And we're going to get into it a little bit later, but they are not stopping. The overall synopsis for Aladdin, which I'm reading the 2019 version, but you know, it really didn't deviate too far from the 1992 version. Aladdin is a lovable street urchin who meets Princess Jasmine, the beautiful daughter of the Sultan of Agrabah. While visiting her exotic palace, Aladdin stumbles upon a magic lamp that unleashes that unleashes a powerful, wisecracking, larger-than-life genie. As Aladdin and the genie start to become friends, they must soon embark on a dangerous mission to stop the evil sorcerer Jafar from overthrowing young Jasmine's kingdom. So my bad, because I just copied and pasted this into my note, and Aladdin doesn't stumble upon the magic lamp while visiting her exotic palace. It's in that like cave far away with like the lion face or panther face or whatever. I guess like a panther tiger face on it. That's not how he gets the lamp. But that's, I guess, keep moving forward. That's a synopsis of it. The live action version stays pretty closely to the same plot points. Some pros are Will Smith singing Arabian Nights at the beginning of the film was like so hilarious. It was a bit jarring. It caught me off guard. I was not expecting it, but it wasn't that bad. It was just funny. I found myself laughing really hard, and I was just so close to singing it as he did, but I'm just not gonna do that because that's embarrassing. And you guys will probably be able to play it forever and ever, and I don't want that. Also, the Prince Ali number was very, very fun and made me feel like I should probably check out the Broadway show before it leaves New York. Some cons that I have was that Iago, who's Jafar's parrot, wasn't funny like at all. I feel like, I'm gonna get into this later, but similar to like the hyenas in the live action Lion King, and also Dumbo has a talking mouse, and I understand that they weren't doing talking animals, so they did kind of still have a mouse around. But with this whole live action stuff, it's like they straddle the line because this is still a fantasy movie. You have a magic carpet, you have a genie, you know, and you have magic, but the parrot can't like actually crack jokes that's funny because he's supposed to be like closer to an actual parrot in his behavior. Iago was so funny in the animated version, so it was pretty sad to not get some sort of comedic relief from him. Will Smith as the genie was flirting with the handmaiden, Jasmine's handmaiden, and I thought that was a little bit creepy because Will Smith is visibly older than the actress, and I feel like if they were really going to play up this love interest, they should have just casted a woman who looked closer to being Will Smith's contemporary regardless of her actual age. Like, I don't know, maybe this actress like looks younger than she is, and that happens. Like, that happens to me, I can relate. It just looked pretty weird for Will Smith to be like flirting, and it was just weird with this younger actress. Moving forward, Jafar was not anywhere near as intimidating as he is in the animated movies. I remember as a child, Jafar was like really intimidating in the cartoons and movies. You were just like, I don't want to mess with him. But in the live action, it's like hands down animated Jafar would win in a fight if it came down to it. This live action Jafar, he just seemed a little like a loose screw. Like, you know, like his parents maybe left, maybe they passed away in a horrible accident or crime or something. He just didn't get the love and attention that he needed, so he was like a bit cuckoo, you know, but he wasn't intimidating, he wasn't scary. I was just like, please, like, this is the villain. And then the last con I had is, so the whole movie is actually Will Smith telling the story of Aladdin to his kids that he had with the handmaiden, right? And so when you reach the end of the movie and it's coming back to the current time, you see Will Smith as a genie talking to his children. I'm like, how does a genie even procreate? How does a genie have kids? Are his kids like half genie now, you know? So I thought that was kind of a weird plot hole, loop, I don't know, thing just to have in the story. So my final thoughts on Aladdin is like, I enjoyed it way more than I did, and I was actually nervous going into to see it because I saw so many mixed reviews on like Twitter about it, and I didn't watch any reviews. I was just seeing people comment, you know, one-offs or what have you, and I was like, I don't know, like maybe this is that bad, but it wasn't. I guess having seen Jungle Book, well, no, I saw Aladdin before Dumbo, but I just felt it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. Like, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time, and I can totally see myself watching this again, you know, in my home with friends, by myself, whatever. The last movie we're going to talk about is The Lion King. The original one came out in 1994, and the remake came out in 2018. The synopsis I'm going to be reading, again from Wikipedia, I didn't go too far. It's for the 1994 version. However, the 2019 version really didn't deviate too far from the synopsis either, like Aladdin. So this feature follows the adventures of young lion Simba, the heir of his father Mufasa. Simba's wicked uncle Scar plots to throw Mufasa off the throne by luring the father and his son into a stampede of wild beasts. But Simba escapes and only Mufasa is killed. Simba returns as an adult to take back his homeland from Scar with the help of his friends Timon and Pumbaa. I feel like that's pretty accurate. We don't have to go into too much more detail with the synopsis. I also saw some jokes where like people were saying spoiler alerts for The Lion King on Twitter, and it was just like, did you not see the animated version? Like, it's pretty much exactly, you can't spoil The Lion King. Like most of us have seen it. And so watching the live action, you know Mufasa's gonna die, like, you know Scar's gonna die, you know that there's gonna be like the fight between the hyenas and the lionesses or what have you. Like, what are we actually spoiling here? Anywho, to get into some of the pros, obviously the CG and the special effects were very good, top tier, high quality, some of the best that you've ever seen. I was making plenty of jokes saying that this Lion King really feels like a nature documentary, like a dramatized nature documentary, if you will. And as I was sitting there in the theater, I felt that, like, even more so what I had been saying was true. At this point, I'm like, they can really like basically like fake nature doc if they really wanted to. It would be an expensive thing to do, but it won't be impossible. Something even this as like minute or that I was paying attention to was like as the dinosaurs thinking about nature docs, as the lions are like running on the sand and stuff like that, I was looking at the particles and I was like, wow, that looks so real. Like the special effects team did a really, really good job with all these simulations. Continuing on, the fur textures for all of the animals and the creatures, you had insects and you know, just anything that wasn't a plant but was an animal and moving was so very well handled. And of course, the animals look very good. They look so good. Like, you know, just visually, what else can I say? It just looked very good. So the last pro that I have was that Timon and Pumbaa really saved the day as like the breakout stars, just like in the animation film. I felt that in the live action, their characters were more like prominent with how much they were. What am I trying to say? I felt like Timon and Pumbaa, they almost seemed to come out more to be more stand out, because in contrast to everybody else, it's just like their characters felt the most animated, and not just visually. I mean, just like the jokes were so funny, the timing of the jokes. It's like it's just their beings in it. Again, in contrast to all the other characters, they just stood out, and they really helped the film a lot. Because I'll just talk about it now. All of these live action movies are about 2 hours, and all of the animated versions are about 90 minutes, because to do 2 hours of animation is ridiculously expensive, especially for the time period that all of these films came out. People were doing them by hand, just with a little bit of computer work in it, and it just would have taken even longer to do an extra half hour. But with all this computer and technology, not that it's done any quicker, it's just like, you know, they're just able to do it. So with all of these movies being about 2 hours, you feel it. That's just straight up. Aladdin maybe was the one that I felt the most comfortable with the time extension, because there was still so much going on. But with the other movies, I was like, okay. I was in the movie theater for Lion King. I was like, shouldn't this be over? Like I've watched The Lion King so many times that I know, like, okay, this is time for the movie to start wrapping up. Like, you know, chop chop, what's going on? Why do we have this scene? Why are we lingering on this? Like, although The Lion King had a lot of shot to just admire what they were doing with the CG and technology and the visuals. There would be like basically like nothing happening. Maybe there's a bug going across or like a bird in the sky, but it's like, look how lovely this sky looks, or this sand looks, or these plants look, or like the bug. That's what I really felt. But I guess that kind of leads me into the cons, right? So overall, I feel like for The Lion King, having to stick to the constrictions of looking so realistic limited a lot of what they could do with the characters, and therefore overall it just wasn't that charming. Again, it definitely was like a dramatized nature documentary. I was sitting there like, man, but nothing's really appealing about these characters. It just looked like actual lions and tigers, and if I wanted to watch actual lions, I'm saying tigers, there was no tigers in this, but they look like actual lions, and if I wanted to see actual lions and meerkats and all sorts of stuff like that, I would just watch Animal Planet or the Discovery Channel, you know? Continuing on, because of these restrictions, the lip syncing wasn't that bad, but it was pretty odd. And I feel like they really weren't trying to exaggerate the mouths, so that left them in like a really weird place where like these animals were barely emoting. Compared to the Jungle Book, the panther and the tiger in the Jungle Book talk a lot, and we see them talking. Like, they look at the camera, or it's like a bit of a 3/4 while they're talking to another character. We see them talking a lot. In Lion King, I feel like they did a lot of cheating, and y'all can let me know if y'all feel the same way or not. We didn't really see the lions talk to the camera, and we didn't really see them talk too much at a 3/4. Whenever they were talking, it was like a cutaway to something else happening. The behind the head of whoever, like, we saw behind the lion that was talking's head, and we saw who they were talking to, but we didn't really see them like talking to us as in the Jungle Book. And I actually want to go back to the Jungle Book and talking about how they're like downplaying characters. I don't remember the snake's name, but I feel like in the animated film, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, the snake was more prominent than in the live action one. let's go back to The Lion King. I also have here that because this was live action, I felt that visually it wasn't vibrant at all. Think of when Simba is singing I Just Can't Wait to Be King. Immediately, at least if I close my eyes, I'm closing my eyes by the way. Maybe you should try closing, if you're not driving, try closing your eyes. Remember Simba singing I Just Can't Wait to Be King. Can you see the colors? Can you see like there was like blues and yellows and oranges? He had the feathers. There was like all these different type of animals. It was so freaking colorful. The live action version is not that colorful. They got the animals there. And also, the animals, they're not grooving and shaking like in the animated one. But it's not colorful. It just isn't. It falls. It's very green because of like nature. And you have the animal patterns and stuff like that. But it is nowhere near as vibrant. Speaking of songs, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Do you guys remember that scene? Again, close your eyes and visualize with me. You see a lot of blue and like moonlight. And because it's animated, you got a bit of sensuality as an adult when you go back and look at it. You say, oh, Nala was giving Simba the eyes. I didn't realize that as a child because I've never seen the eyes before, but Nala was giving Simba the eyes. In the live action version, Nala can't do that. She can't make that face. Her face, they won't let her face do that, right? But what got me, which someone pointed out on Twitter, was in the 2019 version, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? It like all happens in the daytime. They didn't even have I don't really recall the scene. I was probably checking out, but I don't remember that many night scenes, honestly, especially when they were meeting. They met in the daytime, which is true to the movie, but they didn't do that whole time lapse thing. Okay, so continuing back to the time, there were enough things that were added to The Lion King to delay the storytelling. There were some moments for me where I was looking at this and I'm like why do we need to see this scene of the hyenas or the scene of the lionesses? And I think I recall people saying too, for Nala, she has more lines than she did in the animated version. So there was a lot of that. There was definitely a lot way more dialogue that I can tell was added along with the beauty scenes and shots, what have you, to just kind of extend the storytelling. And that was a little bit annoying to me. Scar's Be Prepared was very anticlimactic for me. As a child, when I saw this in theaters, okay, this came out in 1994, so I was 5, very small, and I saw this in theaters and we sat, if not the first row, one of the first 3 rows, so this was humongous for me. And I remember being terrified by the Be Prepared number, because again, giant screen, little person, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Scar, good villain, good villain. So I was ready to see this in the 2019 version. I was ready for, 5-year-old Monique to be a little shook, but I felt like the number was cut short. I feel like it definitely was not as dramatic, and I understand, again, to be realistic, it has physical constraints, so he can't be his sassy self, but we didn't really get to see him have his time in that capacity, and I felt like they did a lot of cutscenes as well, and we couldn't see him singing the song. Everything for the most part felt pretty distant when Scar was singing through this number. And last thing, overall I feel like the hyenas were downplayed a lot. I remember, again, I've seen Lion King so many times, laughing and really enjoying the hyenas. However, in this 2019 version, I felt why are they in so far in the back? Yeah, they're in the back, but you have them so far in the back right now. And I feel maybe because if they had played up the hyenas a few notches down in comparison to Timon and Pumbaa, I feel maybe that would have made it a bit stronger. But they didn't do that. For the live action Lion King 2019, I'm saying live action with air quotations. I don't even want to completely get into that, but let me just one thing at a time. I probably would not watch this again. The Jungle Book, before I started recording this, it actually came on TV, and I didn't change the channel. And I feel I may not ever feel hey, I need to watch the live action Jungle Book. But if it's on TV or if someone is playing it, I will not leave the room or change the channel. Dumbo, not watching again. Aladdin, I'll watch again. The Lion King, not gonna watch again. So, as I said, all these movies are about 2 hours long. a whole half hour, if not 45 minutes longer than the animated version. Enough of them, like Aladdin, I feel like probably had some numbers from the Broadway show, like the Disney movie. The success, like I said, of the live action Jungle Book is why we're here and why we're getting so much of everything. Actually, before I get to the next part of this episode, I did want to touch on, I said I was going to come back to it with the whole live action The Lion King. This was a big thing happening, the terminology and the word usage on art Twitter, animation Twitter, where the director came out and, he was basically saying that this is like live action and really trying to distance the film from animation, which I understand, especially as we're about to enter award season. He wants to make sure it's distinctive, like this is not Frozen, Wreck-It Ralph, this isn't the 1994 version, The Lion King. This is really sophisticated movie making stuff. However, I highly doubt if any part of the 2019 remake is actual like live action. I haven't seen the behind the scenes yet, so I don't know if they used some live footage and then did all the special effects on top of it, but none of the animals are real. Pretty sure most, if not all of the plant and atmospheric stuff are not real. It's all CG generated. So this is a bit of a problem when we do get into talking about animated films, because the live action Lion King is animated. It is what it is. These are not real lions. These are not real warthogs and meerkats and hyenas, zebras, elephants. These are all computer generated images. So to really say that this is live action and try to categorize and squeeze itself upon actual live action films so that it can get the awards that it feels like it deserves, I think is not fair to animation itself. I always say, and as we continue on this podcast journey, as y'all continue to get to know me personally, I've said this plenty of times before, animation is a medium. It's not a genre. It's a means like to an end for storytelling. You use animation to tell your story. Your story is not the animation itself. So you have 2D animation, which is all the 90s films that we love, modern day Steven Universe, Adventure Time, Rick and Morty. What's the other one? The Regular Show, all those type of things, Bob's Burgers. Those are 2D animation, right? And then we have 3D animation, which is Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Into the Spider-Verse. I'm always going to talk about it, but that's really handling 3D animation without giving us the whole like Pixar Incredibles look and feel to it. And we have stop motion. So that is Coraline. That's The Nightmare Before Christmas. That's Frankenweenie. That is Klubo and the Two Strings. If you've watched Chicken Run, if you've watched Wallace and Gromit, like all of those things, that's all stop motion. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff like in between, and things as we go forward are starting to be overlapped. And within a lot of live action films, meaning films with humans and shot in like the real world, they do have animated elements. Most times the Spider-Man in the superhero movies, it's an animated character that is swinging through all this stuff. Like it's not the actor playing Spider-Man at all. Like I've met some of the animators that animated the Spider-Man as he's swinging through his like with his web or whatever on the buildings. That's like animation, but we're not going to acknowledge that as like best animated scene in a movie type of thing, So there was a lot of words and a lot of feelings, and rightfully so, people saying call the 2019 remake what it is. It's an animated film. It's not live action. I had to double back and put this in the episode because this was a big thing. I know some of my friends wanted me to touch on and see how I felt. I feel that, again, call it what it is. Animation is a medium. The type of animation that they wanted to go about in retelling the story. I don't know if you guys have seen, there were people that were taking the 1994 stylization of the lions and putting them on the 2019 live action seeming renders, and you got that visual appeal. And I feel like, man, if Disney had just like went that route instead, they would have been able to push the character's performance so that it would have been more appealing and more charming and more charismatic as the 1994 version. But then I also understand that they're going for a more sophisticated storytelling, but in that sense, you actually lose the story. Like we're sitting here watching it and you're not as entertained as a viewer. And again, you're doing a story that we all know, we all grown up with. Some of us existed before The Lion King. Some of us grew up with The Lion King. We've seen the iterations, right? They just actually canceled Lionsguard, which if you haven't known, that was like the preschool spinoff for The Lion King. And prior to that, we had the Lion King TV show. We had Lion King 2. We had Lion King 1.5. There was video games. We know these characters. So I really feel like to do them as they did with the live action air quotes again version, or I don't even know, like we have to figure out a terminology for this. Are we going to say like photorealistic animation? I don't know, it kind of like just hurt then I feel like a bit the integrity of what the Lion King has become to be. And even if you think, I've seen the Broadway show only once, I definitely want to go back and see it again, how they handled bringing the cartoon to the stage. I wish that this photorealist animated version would have taken more cues from that for this production. Anywho, let's get back to what I was about to say. I made a post or two after I saw the live action Lion King, asking people just to chime in of some of their thoughts with all these live action Disney remakes. So here, let's go. I'm gonna read one off. This was from Maya_Asha from Instagram. I can agree with the charm. I think they underestimated the comedic parts of the movie, and that's what made the animated version charming. They did save it, but they played down a lot of the roles, as well as Rafiki. Good point. I didn't mention that. But I think because they tried to have this serious feel due to the type of animation. And I had just told her that the environments and animals looked good, but I said to her I felt like a lot of the appeal was lost. Next, we have Melissa Mikindo, and this was on Instagram. She said, I think the only good remake was The Jungle Book because they changed it up a little bit. Some shots were different and they changed some of the dances, I think, but that's the only remake I saw because it was on Netflix. I wouldn't waste money to see any other ones. It's boring and shameful that they can't come up with anything original. And I feel you. Just because of how successful the Jungle Book one was, it's just like, let's remake everything. And I, right now, am excited for the live action Little Mermaid. Why? Because Halle Bailey is going to be in it, and she's like black girl. She has locks, so I'm so invested in seeing that. And The Little Mermaid is one of my top princess movies and favorite Disney movies in general. So I am very interested to see how they're going to do this and work this. Moving on Twitter, the_real E says that Aladdin is trash. Will Smith saved the movie. Lion King was visually beautiful. Just wanted be prepared, and she would have been satisfied. Beauty and the Beast, she said, was trash, and Jungle Book was visually beautiful, but honestly, she never was a fan of the story. I intended on doing also pros and cons of Beauty and the Beast, but I didn't rewatch the live action version, and I really didn't want to speak from memory. I also have on Instagram, PR Jade said that she loved the realistic animals in the Jungle Book and the Lion King. I think that's why Lion King had a disclaimer when you bought tickets. This movie may not be suitable for children. She probably would not bring her 3-year-old godson because the fighting lines would scare him. That's actually a good thing. I didn't mention that either. The Lion King remake, it did have some moments where I was like, oh, this is really not for children, because it was just so realistic, and there were some dark moments with the fighting. I was like, these kids, like, if I was 3, well, I'm a scaredy cat, I would have lost my mind. Like, I would have been like, why'd y'all bring me to this? She continues to say, but she loved the realistic scenery, etc. Her fave live action was The Beauty and the Beast, and it was A+ for her because of the singing, dancing, and she loves Emma Watson. I really enjoyed the live action Beauty and the Beast. I'm gonna get into that, but I'm gonna keep it moving first. I feel like there was someone else that I am missing. Yes, I got her. This is... Ooh, I don't have her whole Instagram. It says @NoOneDefines. Oh, yes, I do. This is Twitter, excuse me. @NoOneDefines.me. The Lion King, visually beautiful. Hans did his thing with the soundtrack. The voice actors, Aladdin, the best live action. Will Smith had some big shoes to fill and did that. Songs were still on point, still laughing at Yam Jam. Beauty and the Beast? Be Our Guest was beautiful. The CGI for the Beast was a no. I agree with you on that. The extra backstories wasn't needed, especially since they did the deluxe edition. And I hear you too. So that's all of the commentary I got back from asking people what they thought about these live action remakes. And again, use the hashtag SimProboticsPod to tell me what you think of the movies that I mentioned, some of the ones that I'm about to talk about, the upcoming ones, just your thoughts. The hashtag again, SimProboticsPod. So the honorable mentions I have are Cinderella. I didn't watch it. Wasn't interested, can't see myself watching it. The Winnie the Pooh live action, was interested, not interested enough to watch it, and apparently not interested enough to find it and watch it. Maybe, Disney's coming out with their streaming service, I'll probably watch the live action then. Beauty and the Beast, so let me tell you, Beauty and the Beast again is one of my top princess movies, top Disney movies. Be Our Guest, I saw it on Broadway, that was amazing. I also love the Tale as Old as Time, Beauty and the Beast when they're dancing and she has a yellow dress on and they're like falling in love. So yes, I love it. The live action one I did hold standards, but because I love Beauty and the Beast so much, I saw when they re-released it in theaters and they had the sing-along version, I was there singing along in the theater. Like I told you, I saw it on Broadway. My cousin, I'm calling her my baby cousin, when she was little, we'd watch the Beauty and the Beast 2 to 3 times a day when she stayed over. She got into it because of my obsession and she made me obsessed all over again. So the live action one I felt was pretty good. I too like Emma Watson. They did add some background context and story that wasn't needed, but again, these movies are 2 hours, so they're going to fluff out the movie. But I really enjoyed it. I have watched it again, but not that many times, surprisingly, for the live action one. But I'll watch it again in a heartbeat. I really enjoyed it. The Mulan trailer got released, and there was some discrepancies about it. I'm really looking forward to the live action now, more so because at first when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is mad serious. It doesn't seem as fun. I mean, the animated version was serious too, but it was still fun because of Mushu. And they are doing away with Mushu. And then they explained that they want it to be more historically accurate. So there's going to be some changes. And that actually has allowed me to be like, okay, well, I might come from a culture too. And I would want, if Disney had the time to do justice to my culture, for them to do so and not hold on to the fact that, well, this is what we did in the 90s. We're going to stick to that. And if it offends you in 2019, oh, well, get over it. So, my inner child would be okay. I really do want to see the live action Mulan. It looks very, very interesting. But when I was supposed to actually release this episode, Disney went and dropped the Lady and the Tramp live action trailer. I watched the trailer 4 times. Lady and the Tramp, when I was talking about the Jungle Book, and I probably actually didn't mention it, that I wasn't really crazy about the Jungle Book as a child. When it came to the animal movies, I liked Aristocats, I liked The Fox and the Hound. I also liked Lady and the Tramp and 101 Dalmatians. So I wasn't really into the Jungle Book. Those were my movies. So when I heard that they were doing a live action Lady and the Tramp, I was like, oh no. Y'all are about to ruin this. Again, these characters have appeal because it's 2D animation, and here you going doing this live action animal stuff. So I watched the trailer actually a couple times, and I am not liking it. I feel in the trailer it's pretty spot on, scene for scene for the most part to the animated movie, but I'm just why are y'all doing this? Thank God y'all not putting it in theaters, but still just stop, just cut it out, do something different. The Lady and the Tramp, man, I don't know. That was one thing. I really did enjoy that movie as a child. To go back to 101 Dalmatians, that wasn't on my mind. Maybe, I don't think I'll do a part 2 to this. I was about to say maybe I would. That's not, I highly doubt it. I would have to have no ideas and to do a part 2 to this. But 101 Dalmatians had a live action. And I feel that's one of the ones that got it super right. Super, 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 super right. They didn't, because they used real animals, so they didn't do they could have, but they didn't do the whole talking mouth thing. But that's a movie I have watched over plenty of times, being a 90s kid, and the animated version and the live action version. I just really loved it. I really enjoyed it. And I feel that should be talked about sometimes. Keeping things moving, let's get into some animation news. First up, I wanted just to let y'all know, if y'all don't know, Freeform is doing 30 days of Disney all September. And I know it's already mid-month, but I thought it's really worth mentioning because they're playing a lot of Disney, a lot of Pixar, a lot of, like live action Disney movies, and so far I'm really, really enjoying it. They're also going to be doing, as they usually do, 31 Days of Halloween, and I just, it's worth mentioning and looking out. So Disney they did their D23, I believe that's what the event is called, y'all can correct me, where they were talking about their streaming platform and all host of stuff like that. It was announced on The Hollywood Reporter that Blue Sky Studios would probably be helping with production for some of their original content for their streaming platform. The Minnie Mouse voice actress, is it Russi Taylor? She passed away on July 26th. Richard Williams passed away on August 18th. I know enough of y'all may not know who he is because y'all don't or maybe have not studied animation and you're just my friends listening to this. So who's Richard Williams? Richard Williams is like the GOAT of animation, right? He's a Canadian British animator who wrote the Bible, so to speak, for animation called the Animators Survival Kit. If you're studying animation or want to become an animator, whatever, this book is the holy grail. Like, you still have to read it in art schools and art colleges. It's just, you can't not refer to this, and people have built their teachings even off of this. And if you're going to be in New York City come September 20th, is it the whole week? What I'm going to is on September 20th. They do an after school special. It's SVA's Alumni Film and Animation Festival. It features some of the School of Visual Arts. Again, this is my alma mater. Most accomplished film, television, animation, and visual effects alumni. This is a multi-day festival and it includes screenings, premieres of new work, behind the scene looks at cinema and television hits and classics. All events will feature a special Q&A with industry insiders, a full schedule, and a list of participants. I can't speak. I just spoke for 40 minutes and now I can't speak. A full list of participants is at the Eventbrite list. So just go to svatheater.eventbrite and you will be able to find out more of this. So I think there's a Wreck-It Ralph screening. It's Ralph Breaks the Internet. It's the sequel to Wreck-It Ralph. I'm probably going to go to that. I like going to they do a shorts festival. I think that's Friday night where they're going to show a whole bunch of shorts. And because I am obsessed with the Spider-Verse, there's going to be a Spider-Verse panel. So I'll be going to see it again and check out the panel. Next, I have a lot of panel news, right? Diverse tunes. We have 3 panels in 4 weeks, starting with our newest panel called Between the Pages, where we will have authors and illustrators to have a dialogue about books, publishing, and freelancing. The conversation will be centered around the panelists' journeys into their industries, their aspirations to promote inclusivity, as well as our usual Q&A. So lastly, the panelists will have their books and prints for sale. This will be Saturday, September 28th, up in Harlem from 2 to 4 p.m. Don't worry, links to everything is going to be in the show notes. Also, Diverse Tunes will be at the 4th annual Annie, also known as Animation Nights New York Best of Fest. This will be Saturday, October 5th in downtown Manhattan, way downtown. It will be at 12 p.m. We're going to be presenting our new and improved Women Taking the Lead panel, highlighting some game changers in the animation industry here in New York. Also, that Saturday at 4 p.m., I'll be a part of their industry exchange event, where I'll be talking one-on-one with some people looking to break into the animation industry. So I guess if you always wanted to meet me and talk to me one-on-one, this is something you're definitely gonna want to check out. Lastly, Diverse Tunes will be partnering with Queen City Film Fest in New Jersey. That's right, we're going to New Jersey on Saturday, October 26th. We've partnered with them to present an animation showdown block, which will be consisting of animated films of various lengths, and that's going to be happening on October 25th. But our panel will be there Saturday, October 26th. Time is still being confirmed. Our panel will be focusing on the business side of things and navigating your career in the industry. You can purchase your tickets at qcffnj.com. Links to everything, like I said, is going to be in the show notes. We have a discount code for this Queen City Film Fest. It's Diverse Tunes 1, and you're going to get 50% off your tickets. So you really don't have a lot to worry about. In short, if you just want to go now, go to diversetoons.com/events and you'll find everything I just mentioned. And that's it of my animation news, because this episode ended up being a lot longer than I wanted to. But I missed y'all. I missed doing this. I had a lot to say and so forth. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening for so long, for a whole like 50-ish minutes. There's no guest. I'm hoping to have a guest on soon. Definitely before the year ends, let's get somebody else on this. Again, you can follow me on all social media platforms at Simply Robotics, SIMPLYROBOTIX. The hashtag for joining the conversation, Simply Robotics Pod. My website, simplyrobotics.com. If you're on iTunes, if you have an iPhone, even if you don't listen through the podcast app on your iPhone, just like rate and review. Thank you for those who have shared the podcast episodes, who shout me out. I really, really appreciate it. You know, this is a monthly podcast at the moment, so I definitely appreciate everybody just like helping me spread the word and sharing this. Up next, the episode will be the Diverse Tunes panel audio from Women in Multimedia. That was a panel we had back in November with Women in Animation's student branch at the School of Visual Arts. So that's going to be a dope conversation, similar to the one, what was that, episode 2 or 3, when I had the first Diverse Tunes panel audio. So now you're just going to be hearing some women of color speak about their experiences. And that is it. Thank you again, y'all. Have an awesome week, a day, a month. The rest, we're about to get into the fourth quarter. Let's rock out. Let's close this year off strong. Bye.